Welcome back. You know, there's certain stories that we cover here that unfortunately keep having a recurrence. Gun violence is one of them, where there'll be yet another tragedy involving a kid getting his hand in a gun, and then there's a frustration and a very difficult search for answers. Another similar story is bullying, especially with the advent of cyberbullying. We've got a panel together to talk about this and a whole other bunch of issues tonight here, but let's bring them in. We have New York Assemblywoman Shelley Mayer. She is Democrat out of Yonkers, political journalist and author Dominic Carter, Mark Furnish, professor of Brooklyn Law and attorney himself, who's argued before the highest court of the land, and our own senior political correspondent, Andrew Whitman. And, sometimes it's hard. I mean, you put this in the context of a parent, but also a lawmaker here. And I want to go into the different solutions to this, because it always seems so many of the stakeholders after a tragedy with bullying, whether it's the old-fashioned variety of the cyberbullying, schools, parents, the law, the service providers, they all throw their hands up and say, oh, what a shame. But yet nobody takes ownership for what could or should have been done. Can the legislature solve this problem and be part of the solution even more than they are, or no?
Well, I think they can be part of the solution, not the solution. It's a much bigger problem than a law will change. We did pass a cyberbullying law last year in 2012 in New York. Governor signed it. It requires schools to take much more affirmative action when there's cyberbullying with a student. But it's difficult to attack this problem with a legislative fix. This is a behavioral thing. Social media made it worse. I think we need more than laws to change it. Laws are one piece of it. I agree with you, teachers, students, but how can we really change the culture of cyberbullying beyond sort of the normal push and pull of adolescent behavior? And I don't know the answer.
And you know, Dominic, one of the things that Richard was talking about, and he used that analogy of that there was a parent-teacher that was set up where the parents were invited to come in. They were going to have a reality check of what was going on, and out of a 50 and 100 person student body, 30 parents showed up. And as I said, those were the 30 parents that probably didn't need to be there because of their kids. You've talked about this before. It's either the parents don't want to acknowledge that their kid could be part of the problem, or B, that they're not invested enough in what's going on. I don't know how you mandate it, but it feels like until you get over that hurdle, you're going to keep having these kind of problems.
I couldn't agree with you more, but that's why I feel that we have to find a way, and it involves the legislature, because they can only do but so much, as the Assemblywoman said, but we've got to find a way to hold parents responsible, even if it means criminally. I don't know how, I know, for example, if a state police officer in New York State calls a parent and they're at work and the child has done something and the officer says, you've got to get down here. If you refuse, they can charge the parent with some type of crime. You can tell us what it is. But they've got to do something, Richard. It's got to change. It's the only way you're going to stop this. The only way.
Well, the other thing, Andrew, I think is, I don't understand why the service providers get such a pass on this. They create the platform for the conversation, whether it's, whatever the portal is that does this. I'm not trying to single out one over the other. And then it's like that famous line from, Casablanca, like gambling in this establishment. Who knew? Well, you created it. It's like if I create a platform here and something goes out over the air, I have culpability, both civilly and God knows whatever else, if something happens on here. Why isn't there a responsibility under this phony veil of free speech that they should take some ownership if people are getting, technologically tortured online?
Well, I completely disagree with you, unfortunately. It's their venue, but they're not the ones doing the speech, and they shouldn't be the ones policing the speech. I don't want Facebook monitoring what I'm saying on Facebook and taking actions based on that, and determining what's okay for me to say and what's not okay for me to say.
Here's the thing.
If
you're going to create a platform
for the words that
fair
they're
enough.
writing.
But if you have minors trafficking and you're seeing a pattern of abuse that's leading to, and I'm trying to get somewhere that maybe you can help me, that's facilitating illegal behavior, illegal treatment of a minor, that's the only way I think you fix this, is through the pocketbook, where people say, all right, you know what, I'm going to have monitors at least in place here. I'm going to have some kind of oversight.
Well, there is a federal statute that provides for civil remedies and criminal remedies for, believe it or not, things like violation of Internet Service Terms Agreement. It's called the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. And it's proven to be an utter disaster because the parameters of the law are so vague and so nebulous because they're predicated on contracts, meaning the user terms that nobody reads. They just click through them.
iTunes law.
That's right.
Yeah.
And they're so vague that enforcement depends on how well or how poorly these online contracts are written that are never read to begin with. So it's been an object lesson in what not to do in proscribing things by legislation. And one thing that should not be proscribed by legislation is harassment or misuse of the internet. We already have, plenty of First Amendment doctrine that says hate speech is not protected by the First Amendment. We already know that. The answer to this, in my view, is not legislation, and it's not trying to legislate out bullying, because bullying has been around since time immemorial. It's part of human nature. This just gives it, as you said, a new platform. It behooves parents of alleged victims of bullying to teach their kids how to react and how not to react to it, and to monitor what their kids are looking at
But it's
online.
explained to me, though, the difference between when we were kids and now is there's no escape. The kids go from, the guy throwing them in the locker in school to when they get home, a universe that they're going to go to, and they may not tell their parents because they're embarrassed or anyone else, that they can't escape, and they feel that there is no end to
You
it.
know what?
And then, that has such commonality. It's in the cities, in the suburbs, in the rural communities, white, black, every color under the rainbow it's happening. And it's their kids. And Andrew and I can debate about whether or not the platform takes responsibility, but I guess my question is, if not there, then where? You can't have a party at your house where if your parents are gone, they get banged up, the kids get in trouble. The parents, all of a sudden, if they're going to face some culpability out of this in the pocketbook or something else, they're going to make sure they're going to lock the liquor cabinet up the next time that they're gone. If they have to take responsibility for the kids' actions, then there's a better chance here that they're not going to let the thing perpetuate itself, no?
I'm not sure that parents, just as the victim parent can't control what the child is looking at, I'm not sure that the parent of the bullier can control what the bullier is doing and what he's looking at and what he's saying.
They can't control their own child?
Can't control their own child.
But yet the one that's the victim, if my child is timid, I'm supposed to make my son stronger to deal with these monsters that are coming into the school system.
But they're not monsters.
Some of them are monsters.
They're words, and they have to be taught that there's a difference between words and action, that nobody, son or daughter, is going to jump through the computer screen and throttle you. Sticks and stones.
They gotta go to
Sticks
school.
and
Yeah.
stones.
They have to go to
That's
Mark,
different.
I
Now, that's
disagree
different.
because
if it goes into action from
when
the
you read
virtual
some of
realm
the
to physical
detail
realm, it's
of
different.
what's happened to their lives, and I know we're heavy, Danny, but when you read what's happened to their lives, it's not just words. And that old adage, the sticks and stones. They're being told, die, no one likes you, no one wants you around. Now you put that in the head of a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old who, come on, if you got a problem, you're always going to run to mom or dad. You'd like to think they would, but come on.
But I do think Mark has a point, and it's not an either or, and I think it's wrong to sort of make this one way or the other way. There is a point in empowering your children, and it doesn't always work.
Yeah,
you
right.
can empower your children all you want, and they could be bullied, and with very dire results. But as parents, we have a responsibility to the extent possible to empower your child to be able to hold their own. But not every kid can, and not every kid can manage against the close to physical threat that you describe. I think that's more than you can ask of every child.
And I honestly would just say, hey, toughen it up. But the more I look into this, the more it's just so raw. It's too simple. And I don't know. It breaks your heart. Like I said to him, it's a one story, Dom. You do this every day. I can't finish these stories.
It's not fun.
But you know what?
I've seen the movies.
It's tough, but it's tougher than we remembered.
It is. I think it's the hardest time a kid has to grow up now because of the proliferation of technology. But parenting has always adapted. Human beings have always adapted to changes over time. And this will work out in the fullness of time.
You see your kid come home with a black eye. If you don't know this, I don't know. It's tough. All right. When we come back, we will open up the docket. A lot of high-profile cases and also interesting goings-on in Albany. There always is. We're going to get into all that after this.